You are listening to the Small Town Big Talk Show, the weekly podcast for small town people with big dreams and ideas. I'm your host, Rebecca Undem, and each week we'll cover a topic meant to inspire, encourage, and empower you to live big in your small town. Although it has its challenges, nothing beats small town living, and we're committed to sharing the best of what's working in the communities we serve. So enjoy this episode, and we hope it helps you to bloom where you've been planted. Hey everyone, it's Rebecca Undem, your host of the Small Town Big Talk Show. And I'm flying solo today. I want to share with you some of the takeaways from this kind of mini conference that I went to out in the Black Hills of South Dakota this past weekend. It was another event hosted by the amazing team at Dakota Resources. And I this time was privileged to be asked to speak to this group of people. And there's so many good nuggets of information, of course, that comes away from any time that you invest in yourself as a professional. But I specifically did a session called Love the One You're With. And because those of you that listen to this are people that are in small towns, and honestly, I think this is a mindset everybody should take. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that. I think this could benefit everybody. But specifically, the context of this session called Love the One You're With was there was two tracks of people that were involved at this conference that Dakota Resources hosted. One is a group of economic development professionals, and the second are small town or rural business owners or entrepreneurs. And so I have long had this philosophy, and in fact, this philosophy happens to be the foundational belief system that created Growing Small Towns, the nonprofit that I've recently started. And it was so fascinating because they had reached out, asked if I'd be interested in doing a breakout session. We talked a bit, had a conference call with them. And when I started talking about this idea of a session called Love the One You're With, Joe, the CEO, well, he wholeheartedly agreed. I was like, well, this is great. Like he said, this is a great topic. I think we can really benefit from this, and kind of, those general things. And then I get to the actual conference and they do this thing called an opening circle. And he started talking. It was as if he was like my kindred spirit, only in dude form, and then in the state to the south of me. Like there's nothing he said that I didn't just truly grab onto and think, this is exactly how I feel about the world. And talking about loving the one you're with is really about loving the people that are already here. So if you're an economic development person or you're a community person thinking like, how do we get new, fancy, awesome things here? Stop thinking about it like that maybe, and instead think, how do we love and nurture and support the people that are already here, right? The businesses that are already here. How do we love the ones that we're already with? And then for the entrepreneurs, the question is the same, right? Instead of thinking, how do we get more followers or how do we get more people to pay attention? I mean, and I get this, right? I run this business. I'm a speaker. I'm a consultant/coach. Like I do these trainings and speaking engagements. And I have this podcast. Like I want more listeners. I want more followers. I want new people to come along. But man, sometimes we need that reminder that more isn't necessarily always better. And growth could be just investing in the customers that you already have. Okay. And then, so I'll tee this up a little bit. A couple of the things that I shared to start with is that the Harvard Business Review, they have this statistic that's this widespread. It says acquiring a new customer is 5 to 50 or 25 times more expensive than retaining an existing one, which I'm just like, why couldn't they get a little tighter on their spread? Like 5 to 25 times seems kind of wide. But even if you leave it at the most conservative number and you realize that it takes 5 times the resources, cost, effort, attention to attract someone new than it does to retain someone that's existing. So the question then becomes, why don't we just take those resources and pour them back into the people that are already here? What kind of return might we see from that? So that's like the logical side of it. Then let's just talk about the heart side of it, the feeling side of it. And I asked the question, when was the last time you went out to a public restaurant to eat with a loved one or a spouse or your family and looked around the restaurant? What do we predominantly see people doing? Everybody's on their phones. And I'm just as guilty, okay? This isn't me saying, oh, the world's terrible and they should be more like me. No, this is just something that we all can acknowledge, right? We see this happening everywhere. So my husband has looked at me and said, hey, you're here with me. Like, put your phone down and pay attention, right? So I think on the heart side of things, if you think about your closest relationships, if every time I was with my kids, I was more focused on getting new friends or new followers, and I was engaging with people that weren't in the room with me, primarily, let's say, through my phone, that wouldn't show my kids much in the way of how much I care about them or love them. Same with a spouse, same with our other family members, and same with friends, right? So I kind of laid this in saying, okay, so our brain gets it, our hearts even get it. So what's keeping us from choosing love as a strategy? I believe love is a strategy. And so I want to share with you, and so really the questions in the comments were just like, we're kind of conditioned to chase after the new. There is absolutely a thrill of the chase. And I think that we need to acknowledge that, especially in a small town. It is so much fun when, I don't own a storefront, I don't own a retail business, but I would imagine it's pretty dang thrilling when somebody new comes into your space and they say, this is my first time here. And you're just like, what? Oh my goodness. And you get super jacked up about that. That's normal, okay? It's totally normal. That thrill of the chase, the adrenaline that comes with new. But I think when it comes to growing our communities, growing our entrepreneurship, we have pockets of talent and hidden potential throughout our small communities. And these 4 strategies that I'm going to share with you here, I'm just going to give you a quick overview because we don't have time for the entire session, but I just want to give you a few little strategies to think about how we actually do this. Okay, so doing these 4 things, what it can do, hopefully, is just change the way that you think about it and recognize what we really need. If we want our communities to be vibrant and attractive to people that don't live here, the people that are best positioned to do that and become kind of ambassadors and evangelists for our community are the ones that are here. So, love is a strategy. There's 4 ideas that I'm going to share with you about how to love the one you're with. And then, without having visuals, it's kind of tricky, right? But the thing that I want to also remind you, this is a visual. It'd be so much easier if you could see this, but I'll try to explain it. Basically, all of us operate with the same kind of a cycle, okay? There's external stimulus, things that happen to us, or stimuli. We have experiences, we have memories, we have things that happen to us, events that happen to us. From those things, if you imagine 2 arms breaking out from that external stimulus, 2 things break out. And if you imagine like a decision tree coming down, one out the right side, one out the left side, we end up having thoughts and feelings about that thing that's happened to us, maybe good, maybe bad, don't know. The other side, out the left-hand side, you've got beliefs. So everything that we come to think about the world stems from the things that we have experienced or the memories that we have about things. That's why no 2 people move through the world exactly the same. We've all been conditioned differently throughout our lives. Okay, so then imagine that from each of those decision trees, they come around to the same thing now. They come back together. And those are the things that drive our behavior, the choices that we make day in and day out. And that's why, again, no 2 people will do and act exactly the same way or react exactly the same way to the same stimulus because they've got their own sets of feelings, thoughts, and beliefs about those things. And then ultimately, the last piece, what is driven from our behavior are the results that we get, right? Like the stuff that happens, the stuff that we do generates either positive things or negative things. We get these consequences from our behavior. And then those further support and reinforce or become new memories. So it's this big cycle that we work under. And so the reason I'm sharing that with you is because as outside people, I'm giving these strategies to you if you're a business owner or you're an engaged community member and you want to see positive kind of evangelism happen for either your business or your community. We aren't responsible and nor can we change other people, right? It'd be so tempting to say, well, that's on them. And what they think about that, that's on them. Yes, it is. But if you remember back to this diagram, and I know you can't see it, but we're talking about it, right? There's one place that we get to influence what happens in the whole process. And you can probably guess it. We don't get to influence people's thoughts, their feelings, or their beliefs. We don't get to influence their behavior, and we don't get to influence the results that they get. But we get to influence the memories and the experiences that they have. That is how over time we can change the perceptions that people have about something. And it's by changing the story that they have about it. Again, that's hard work. We don't get to dive into someone's brain and say, okay, the way that you're thinking about this is too one-sided. Let's shift your perception. But if with a concerted effort, we pour more positive experience on top of whatever disappointment or difficulty they've faced, we can potentially change the way they think or feel or believe about that thing. And that's the goal. We want people to be proud to live here in your community. We want people to be proud to work here. If you're a business owner and you're thinking about these strategies for your customers, you want them to be raving fans. You want them to love you. And so here are the 4 love strategies to love the one you're with. And again, the context, up to you. Number 1, show fanatical appreciation. Okay, so I think we can all agree that gratitude and an attitude of gratitude and being thankful and appreciative of the people that frequent our businesses or that live here, of course, that's a good thing. We talk about the attitude of gratitude. You can pick that up anywhere, right? There's whole journals that you can buy about how to have a more grateful attitude towards things and people. The word I want to kind of zero in on for this kind of review of this strategy is the word fanatical. And that sounds crazy. Like fanatics are considered crazy fans. That's short for fans, right? So as much as we want other people to be raving fans of our community or our business, we also have to then show that same level of appreciation for them choosing us. And the one thing that I think tends to get in the way most with people, and back in my corporate training days where we would do a session on showing appreciation for either your coworkers or your employees, what often comes up is our own personal bias towards it. I know so many people that have said to me, I don't need a pat on the back. I don't do this work for a pat on the back. So I don't need that. So I really doubt that they need that. We need to constantly remember that this, first of all, isn't about us. And yes, the argument could be made that maybe other people don't want that kind of appreciation. But honestly, we are wired for it, even if we tell ourselves we're not. So I'm encouraging you as you listen to each of these to think about, what do you already do to show your customers that you care about them, that you appreciate them, or your businesses if you're an economic development person? What do you already do to show them that you are thankful that they're here? And then what would be the next level up? So thank you notes. I would say most of us don't do that enough anyway, like handwritten thank you notes. They're very powerful. So I would say if you're not doing that, then maybe that's fanatical appreciation to you. Maybe you're scouring your newspaper and you're looking for any mention of them as a business, or the things that they care about. And so you scour the internet and you're looking for articles that support what they need or ideas or just any of these things, right? Anything that you can do to say, I am thinking about you and you are top of my mind and I appreciate you. So being fanatical is actually subjective, right? Like what's fanatical to me may not be fanatical to you, and that's totally okay. But instead of just showing genuine appreciation, let's aim for fanatical. What would the next level up be? Okay, number 2, help them grow. So it's really easy to think only about the services or the products that we deliver. That's like the thing that people are either buying or getting from us. But is there a way to partner with either other providers in your community, other businesses in your community, to actually add value to their lives in a way that's not directly related, but maybe complementary to the service or the product that you provide? So teaching a class, offering a workshop, writing a white paper. These are the kinds of things where you can really position yourself, again, not just as an expert, but you're not doing it for the glory, you're doing it for the love. This is a love strategy. You're saying, you make my business great, customer. I want to make your life great. I want to do whatever I can to be of value and service to you. So there are a lot of ways to do this. And again, all I'm hoping is that this sparks some thoughts in your mind about the fact that if you're in business, especially, you're in business hopefully to turn a profit, right? When you are successful, your community is successful. We all want you to succeed. But instead of thinking about how do I extract money from the people in my community as customers, if you just flip that to how do I give value back to them, that creates a loyal following that's honestly hard to replicate any other way. Okay, number 3. This is probably, well, the next 2 actually, well, all of them. I love all of them, let's be real. But these next 2 are a couple of the things that I think are really easy traps to fall into. So number 3 is say yes. I want you just to think about the last time as a customer, you were asking for a tweak to the product offering or the service offering. You were asking for something extra, or you were asking for something modified. So even a restaurant, right? Like I have a girlfriend, I'm just thinking about her right now, and if she would ever listen to this, she would just laugh. I don't think that woman ever orders anything just straight off the menu, right? It's always like, okay, so I want like most of this, like 75% of this, and then you sprinkle in some of this, and and then take that off and then add that on, that kind of a thing. So the last time that you did that, what was the customer service person's response to you? Were they like, I don't know that we can do that? Or did they just automatically say, yeah, no problem, we'll take care of it? Let me reiterate what you said just to be sure I didn't miss anything, right? We don't often get that kind of a response in people anymore. And I would say less so in restaurants than maybe ever before. But the whole idea is, what are the rules? This is all about the rules. And so when we're thinking about this from a customer service standpoint, we all have rules and policies that we have to follow. In truth, the customer doesn't give a crap about what those rules or policies are. And as soon as we say the word policy, and that's one of my big tips, is like, just try not to say the word policy ever, if you can help it. There's probably a reason for your policy. So explain why you can't give them what they want by saying why you can't, not it's a policy, because people don't care. And then in that same context, trying to figure out what you can do for them. So instead of saying, okay, so here's what we can do, and making that part of what you say to people. On the economic development side of things, this is the same thing. When you start thinking, okay, what can we do? What if the rules were meant to be, the idea of rules were meant to be about what we can and should do versus what we can't and won't do? What would it look like if the rules you wrote for your business, in terms of all of it, in terms of service, your return policies, all of those things, what if you would look at those through the lens of what you can and should do for a customer instead of what you can't and won't? Say yes. Give people, whoever you serve, give them options over apologies. Because we often think that by saying, I'm sorry, I know I can't do that for you, it's against policy. We think that that softens it because we're saying, I'm sorry first. They don't care. They don't care that you're sorry. They want what they want. So what if we could rewrite the rules of our service and the way we serve people with that lens instead? It's pretty powerful if you think about it. Okay, number 4, last but not least, is to be enthusiastic. I just got done sharing the big vision for my nonprofit with a handful of people in my community. And I can't help but be enthusiastic about it when I talk about it because I genuinely have serious passion for it. But I do know that there have been jobs that I've had in my life where you do lose a little bit of that drive over time. And there's a lot of reasons, especially in a small community, where we may be a little bit hesitant to walk around being crazy out there. And that isn't what enthusiasm is. Enthusiasm is not cheerleading, although cheerleading can look like enthusiasm, I agree. But what enthusiasm is that drive and that passion, that fire in your belly for what it is you're doing and why. People respond to enthusiasm. And it is one of those simple things. And the best part about this is none of these things actually cost money. Maybe a little time, maybe a little attitude, and maybe some skill, definitely. But being enthusiastic is simply a way of moving through the world. It also, I think oftentimes we tell ourselves, I can't be this positive about everything because there's so many things going wrong. And okay, so at the micro level on Main Street in your small town, and just like mine, maybe you have empty buildings. Maybe you've got holes in the services. Maybe You've got a giant empty building, like a Shopco building. We all talked about the Shopco buildings in our various communities. We all have these giant buildings sitting empty. And so maybe it feels like being enthusiastic suggests that you don't take your challenges seriously. And I would just, again, encourage you to think about the fact that your challenges are going to be there no matter how you face them. And so facing them with a positive attitude, a passion, and a drive. And again, not to say like, how do we find the next big business to fill that space, but instead to go to the people that are already here and say, hey, guys, what are your ideas? You're the businesses that are already here. We value you. We appreciate you. We don't want to bring anything into this space that's going to threaten your entire livelihood. Competition is good, but being able to have these honest conversations with enthusiasm and passion, it can make the entire difference in how the people that live and work in your community feel. Why wouldn't we take the time to do that? So again, a quick recap for you. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about the session that I delivered for the amazing Dakota Resources. I keep calling them amazing. Okay, I'll tell you guys in a second here. They're amazing. And at the end, I'm going to share exactly why I'm kind of obsessed and enamored with them. But I shared this session called Love the One You're With, which is about how do we nurture the people who are already in our space, the people we already serve, whether they're the businesses in our community or the customers that we have. The 4 strategies, again, are to 1, show fanatical appreciation. 2, help them grow. 3, say yes. Give them options over apologies. And number 4, be enthusiastic. Love is a strategy. We do a lot of things for strategic purposes in business and in building community. There is no end game for these strategies outside of love, because love ultimately is a strategy. And we can change the way people feel about living here, working here, frequenting our business, patronizing our businesses. We can change the way they feel about those things by simply loving them. So to wrap this up, I just want to share a couple of additional things about Dakota Resources, because they do have this very cool program called the Community Learning Network, which I will just say that I'm going to look at this even more seriously, intently for my community, for me as a professional and our economic development person, because I see the caliber of people that they get to learn from. And this team at Dakota Resources, every time I'm with them, they were the company that hosted Rural X that I talked about a few podcast episodes ago. Every time I'm with them, there's a couple of things. They are so kind, first of all. This was the first trip that I had ever traveled with my kids alone while I had to speak and attend these pieces of this day in this conference. And it was a over 6-hour drive one direction with my 3 little kids. My husband farms, right? So he couldn't come with. And I remember thinking well, there's no way to test them except doing it, right? So we're just going to do it. And the kids they were absolutely amazing. But I swear part of that was how gracious and understanding and amazing the team at Dakota Resources was towards my children. They made me feel like not only was it okay that they were there, but they were happy that I brought them along. That as a mom, as a working mom, I could cry. It was sincerely so lovely. My daughter actually hugged Joe, the CEO, of the day that we were leaving, which was just very precious. And then secondly, they just care. So they extended that care and concern to me and my family, but they really care about the communities that they are trying to support. And not trying to, they are supporting them. And they're supporting communities all throughout South Dakota and into Nebraska. And I'm hoping with some continued collaboration with them that we can bring their level of support into North Dakota as well. And then third, they really have fantastic attention to detail. They care about people and they take good care of people. So when you go to their events, you know what you're going to get. And it's a high quality learning experience that's collaborative and supportive. And they did not pay me to say this. I swear. Well, they actually did pay me to speak, which I also appreciate. That's an interesting thing as a speaker. You get asked to do a lot of stuff for free. And I appreciate that they respect the work that I do. But they did not pay me to do a whole podcast episode dedicated to how great they are. And hopefully you get that this wasn't just a giant plug for Dakota Resources. It was this opportunity that gave me the chance to kind of structure this specific talk that I really hope inspires you to think differently about investing in the people that are already there. This is one of the tenets of my nonprofit called Growing Small Towns, is that I believe our community's greatest asset, the community of Oaks and any small town, our greatest asset are the people and the businesses that are already there. So go love the ones you're with. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a super day. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Small Town Big Talk Show. If you enjoyed today's show, we invite you to subscribe on Stitcher, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, and we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review. The more reviews we get, the easier it will be for other small town friends to find us. We encourage you to keep on living big in your small town, because the size of your life is not determined by your zip code.